Ladies and gentlemen, coming soon, a podcast you've all been waiting for. The Movie Podcast to end all movie podcasts. A podcast that discusses and critiques the best of the best and the worst of the worst movies playing at a theater near you. With a host whose opinions have been deemed as fact by your favorite fact checkers. And that's a fact. Without further ado, let me introduce you to the movie maestro, the tyrant of theater, the gumshoe of review, the man that makes theater employees and Hollywood execs shiver by his mere presence. Ladies and gentlemen, the judge, the jury, the sultan of cinema, Justin Henson! Welcome to the Movie Wire.
Are you looking for a new podcast platform other than Apple, Spotify, and all those other jazz? Well, Newsly is available. Newsly is a brand new platform that does podcasts. Not only that, but Newsly is an audio app for iOS and Android. It picks up web articles about the most trending topics on the web at any given moment. And then get this, they read them to you in a natural human voice. For the first time in the history of the internet, the entire web becomes listenable. You can follow any topic as specific as you like, from sports, science to Bitcoin, even a Kardashian. It will find you the latest articles, including movie news. They also have podcasts as well. Again, the Movie Wire is featured on Newsly, so you should take a listen. I started using Newsly as my default podcast app, and it's been absolutely amazing. Download and use Newsly for free now from newsly.me, or you can check out the link and my promo code in the description of this podcast. Use the promo code and that will give you a 1-month free premium subscription. Stop scrolling, start listening, check out Newsly. Welcome to the Movie Wire. It has been a wild week in Hollywood. We just had the Oscars, and I think we all know how that turned out. We'll be covering that and some surprises, predictable moves by the Academy, and some awesome wins. Not only that, but we will be reviewing 3 new movies, including the Channing Tatum and Sandra Bullock action-adventure comedy The Lost City, the new Sony vs. Marvel adaptation of Morbius, and the Lily Collins, Jesse Plemons, and Jason Segel Netflix original WindFall. Ready to hear my verdict? Let's get into it. All right, where to start? A lot has happened, like I said, this week. This is the very first episode after the Academy Awards. Before I get into an event that everybody's been talking about, I feel the need to go into, unfortunately, what most media networks didn't focus on. This show is about love of movies and not violence, so let's talk about the winners that we overlooked at the Oscars. First and foremost, those of you that listened to my last episode know who I wanted to win. I want to congratulate the entire cast and crew of CODA for winning Best Picture, including my personal favorite, Troy Koshur, for Best Supporting Actor. It was the only film I gave 4 stars to, and I raved about Troy's performance. And it also deserved to win Best Picture. I was relieved that the Academy got this one right. I also was pleasantly surprised that CODA also took away Best Adapted Screenplay. That was on my personal pick for winner. Belfast was another underdog that took it away for Best Original Screenplay. That was also well-deserved, so congratulations to Kenneth Branagh for that one. It was also a well-deserved win that was on my list as well. The surprises for me was Jessica Chastain for Best Actress for The Eyes of Tammy Faye, and a real pleasant surprise was Ariana DeBose for Best Supporting Actress in her work for West Side Story. Both of which were not on my list, but the entire actress category was well-deserving, and it had complete high competition for this year. The only one missing, like I said in my last episode, was Jennifer Hudson for her work in Respect, which completely deserved at least a nomination. As not so surprised, Dune took away the most Academy Awards at 6 for Best Visual Effects, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, Best Sound, Best Original Score, and Best Production Design. The non-shockers this year were only 3 categories, which was Best Animated Feature Encanto and Best Director Jane Champion for Power and the Dog. Well, and actually, and Best International Feature Film, which was Drive My Car. And I also want to give a special shout out to the best documentary that had to follow the unfortunate event from the evening. Summer of Soul. You can find it out on streaming now. If you haven't watched this incredible documentary, I encourage you to take a watch. It's available now. Also, if you haven't watched some of the winners from the evening, give them some support, give them a shout out, take a watch. They did some incredible work on these films, and they deserve a little extra attention since we were kind of distracted by the events that unfolded. Now, for the first time ever on the Movie Wire, I'll be giving out my first award. This award is the Worst Performance from a Professional Actor in a Social Event Award Ceremony. And that award goes to Will Smith for completely distracting and destroying the core values from why everybody was there in the first place. To celebrate, honor, and share the love of movies. Families tuned in. Yearly traditions tuned in, creators tuned in, film students, filmmakers, and in one selfish, irrational, hateful moment, you took something from millions of people. Now, I'm not going to preach what coulda, shoulda, woulda happened. I'm not going to talk about, well, it was a tasteless joke from The Rock, so it was justified. I'm not going to talk about that. I don't care. What I do care about is how many tuned in to watch. Many of those dream of the night they get nominated, and let alone that, but win the Oscar. Will Smith has been one of them. Like I said in my previous shows, he has been Oscar bound for years. Him, out of anybody, should know the feeling of what it's like. The moment he slapped Chris Rock was the moment people hopped on their phones onto social media and distracted from the winners of the night. Out of respect to the other nominees and winners, I did stop watching during Will Smith's acceptance speech. I would refuse to give him the attention he took away from everybody else. He deserves no attention from me after taking away so much from other nominees and winners. As I'm writing this week's episode, I just got a notification that he has resigned from the Academy. The Academy was set to meet on April 18th to decide the consequence of Mr. Smith's actions. This meeting still needs to happen, even if he resigns, to ensure he receives a consequence still from the Academy. If it was me, I would say, take the Oscar away. But I know with that comes a greater consequence than the Academy is ready to deal with based on the controversy of the last few years with the Academy. At the bare minimum, I would say the justified consequence would be not to have him invited back with his irrational risk involved. This would not be out of line. I mean, the Academy didn't even invite the lead actress from the Best Picture nominee, West Side Story, Rachel Zegler. So if we can't invite an actress from a Best Picture nominee, why is it so out of reach that we can refuse entry from Will Smith? And this pains me and disappoints me to say, because I love Will Smith. I grew up watching Will Smith. It's like cutting a family member off, but actions need consequences. And I hope the Academy does the right thing regardless of Will resigning from the Academy. I hope the Academy does the right thing regardless of Will's actions on this. I hope Will seeks out help for whatever pushed him to do such a selfish thing. And I really do mean that. I would like to see Will make a comeback, but not after seeking help to better himself and not having his PR team send out an apology letter that hits all the bullet points. It will be some time, I predict, that we will see another big budget Will Smith picture, and rightfully so. I will not be reviewing a Will Smith film if and when it comes out again until I feel I morally can on this show. Until that happens, we'll see what happens. But that aside, let's get into some movie reviews. Let's get into it. All right, first up, the new Netflix original movie WindFall is now available to stream on Netflix. Take a listen.
This guy breaks into my house. I'll leave.
And you just sit down on the couch.
Okay, but how about you let go of my wife first? And I've had to hold his hand.
How does this open? Is there a trick to the purse?
No.
There's a clasp. And help him rob us.
I want $150,000.
You think that's enough?
Yeah, I think you're probably going to want more than that.
I can get you the money tomorrow.
What?
What? Me.
I owe you something, right?
You owe a debt to a hell of a lot more people than just me.
Try being a rich white guy these days. It sucks. Do you want to be me? Is that it? You're pathetic. I don't think you're going to do anything. Ever.
You need to get close to him. Do whatever it takes. That's it.
Your life is picture perfect.
Picture perfect.
Nothing feels fair. You have everything and I have nothing.
Again, that was the Netflix original movie WindFall. The movie's main character is listed in the credits as Nobody, which would make a lot of sense for this movie, which should have been called Nothing. The movie follows Jason Segel, who plays Nobody, who breaks into a tech billionaire's, played by Jesse Plemons, and wife Lily Collins' vacation home. But things don't go as planned when the husband and wife arrive to the vacation home unexpected. The film was directed by Jason Segel, who also created the story. He originally pitched the story to Netflix during the COVID quarantine in 2020. The film was shot in one location that was perfect for COVID time filming. This is another movie that has been made during the COVID times that suffers from complete lack of imagination. You can tell from the credits that relating the characters was going to be an issue in the film, since the characters are listed with no names, just titles, such as wife, CEO, and nobody. I don't know if this was intentional by the writer Jason Latter, but with what I'll say about how the movie made me feel, I don't really care. The cast is top-notch here, which is very disappointing. There's so much wasted time and talent here. With the home invasion theme, one home location, some great talent, I had high hopes for this film. The film's sunny, bright location has a good opportunity to turn the bright and light and bringing darkness into the home. But again, that's wasted and not utilized. At this point, I'm convinced that wasn't even thought of in this movie, which loses a lot of potential. This is Jason Segel's first big directorial attempt, and he doesn't do a horrible job, but I do feel with how much control he had over the making of this film, he played it way too safe, and he let the film run him. This movie theme has to be driven by dialogue and tense moment. This movie lacks all of this. We don't fully understand any of the main characters, any of the motives. I feel that Jason Latter wanted to build curiosity of the characters and let the audience suspect motives, but the movie fails at what it's trying to do. I was hoping the film would lead to a tremendous climax that would reward the audience for sitting through such a vague movie of nothingness. But alas, it builds up to absolutely nothing, a complete waste of time, and a cardboard of a film that's generic and wasteful. I'm giving WindFall 1.5 stars.
Michael, what have you done?
I was trying to help people. But the cure, it's a curse.
Michael.
I have powers that can only be described as superhuman. But there's a cost. Now, I face a choice. To hunt and consume blood. Or die.
We all have monsters within us. It's up to us to control it.
What if I can't?
Michael Morbius.
You've been given a gift.
Not exactly.
Time to let go of what you used to be.
Discover who you're meant to be.
All our lives we've lived with death. Why shouldn't they know what it feels like for a change? Just accept who you are.
The bad guy.
Morbius.
All right, it's finally here. After delay and delay and delay, Marvel fans can get their comet fix on. Curiosity will bring fans in to see any new big surprises after they're seeing the end credits of Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and Spider-Man No Way Home. This new addition to the Sony Marvel-verse, whatever you want to call it, is here. The problem I have with the standalone villain, anti-villain movies, for example, the first Venom was okay for what it was, thanks to the chemistry between Venom and Tom Hardy. When it comes to the sequel, seemed pretty tame for a sequel to the subtext of Let There Be Carnage. But now we have Morbius, which was originally slated for July 2020 that got pushed due to the pandemic. One would think this would give some great opportunity to tighten things up in the movie, review decisions that were made during shooting. This movie is the work of either insanity, from being cooped up, or overthinking to the point of insanity. The movie stars Jared Leto as Dr. David Morbius, sick all of his life, expecting death with a rare blood disorder, and determined to save others suffering of his same fate. Dr. Morbius attempts a desperate gamble. At first appears to be a radical success, soon reveals itself to be a remedy potentially worse than the disease. Dr. Morbius experiments on bats in hopes to create a cure for the disease, but ends up transforming his DNA that presents traits of that of a vampire. Marvel and Sony have been trying to figure out a way to coexist, and the multiverse storyline is a perfect way to tie these films in. Unfortunately, everything Sony touches turns to kind of a meh. After watching Spider-Man No Way Home, this movie is like me going on stage to perform after Frank Sinatra. This movie is all over the place and lazy. From the first 15 minutes of the film, it already left a bad taste in my mouth by a lot of unnecessary scenes, along with the movie telling the audience what happened in a situation instead of just showing us. This technique of just telling us, if you want to call it that, happens throughout the movie, and it is beyond frustrating that it treats the audience like we don't notice. The casting in this movie feels very desperate. Jared Leto, who was not new to the comic book movies, he's played a version of the Joker on the Suicide Squad and Zack Snyder's version of Justice League. Somebody needs to be a friend to this man. Somebody needs to pull Mr. Leto and say, hey, Jared, maybe these big superhero movies are not for you. Leto does a great job in smaller roles. How he gets these roles so wrong in the big budget movies is beyond me. This one in particular is one of the worst performances I have seen him in. Leto delivers every line like it's his first time at a table read, and the rest of the cast on a Zoom call. There is little to no character development throughout his performance. It was a cardboard performance the entire film. Leto, you just turned into a vampire. For the love of God, act like it. Where is the amazement? Where is the fear? Where is the curiosity? Leto gives the audience none of this. His powers are just there, and the villain, I won't mention his name because I'm keeping this spoiler free, is introduced this way as well. We see nothing what leads to the villain. The filmmakers just kind of make him appear and just kind of, again, tell us what happened. When he is on screen, the character is so poorly written, even the actor couldn't save it. There is no fear to him, there is no curiosity about him, and by the time the climax happens, we just hope they kill each other so the audience can be assured there won't be a sequel. The film reminded me of Punisher Warzone with the random placement of colors. In Punisher Warzone, the use of red was used throughout the movie to create a sense of violence instead of actually using violence. Here, the use of purple is to create a sense of mystical wonder, where this movie provides none. The film introduces two cops that are investigating Dr. Morbius, played by Tyrese Gibson as Simon Stroud and Al Madrigal as Agent Rodriguez. These two are subject to the result of bad writing. When the two are on screen, they deliver the dialogue, and again, reminded me of Punisher Warzone. These two characters' tone and delivery are identical to the cops you see in actually both Punisher movies, or actually any 80s cop movie you've ever seen. The movie was written by Matt Sazma and Burke Sharpless, whose recent credits are Gods of Egypt and the Power Rangers reboot, who obviously didn't spend enough time researching the character of Morbius. If you're going to make a PG-13 version of Doctor turned vampire, you gotta make it count. That's like making a PG-13 movie about a vigilante that has his family killed and seeks revenge, or an alien that takes over a human's body that eats people. If you haven't gotten the hint, Punisher and Venom. These filmmakers should take a lesson from the success of Deadpool that gets and understands the characters and its audience. The studio has played it too safe with these movies. By doing this, they dishonor the character entirely and the interest that they could introduce to the fan base. I'm sure the filmmakers on this movie wanted to find ways to have plenty of potential to have a crossover. I get it. I do. There are ways to have this movie R-rated and still have a potential to do a crossover. The filmmakers on this movie should put on their big boy pants and have written it with the intention of an R rating. Maybe, just maybe, the writers could have taken a different direction in this movie. But all those things aside, here's the biggest disappointment in the film. It was a couple things here. that should have been the best things of the movie given they had extra time during all the pandemic delays that they could have worked on. It's like when you're in high school and you spend the weekend going to parties instead of working on a research paper. Then going into class Monday, you ask the teacher for more time. Then you still decide to wait till midnight the night before turning it in to work on it. The editing is noticeably bad and overly basic. It adds nothing to the film. The editors on this film must have turned in their research paper before proofreading it. It is absolutely awful. The editing isn't the only issue. To complement it, the other things of this movie they should have spent a lot of time during the film delays is the special effects. These special effects will not age well. Again, I go back to Morbius and the villain. I think Dr. Morbius looks more frightening, scarier, and it is more of a thrill before he transforms into a vampire. He, Morbius, transforms. It is not scary or intimidating. When the villain is introduced, the feel of him seems like they were running out of money by the time they were doing his transformation. He is a toned-down version of Morbius that looks more dysfunctional than he is an absolute scary villain. And again, we can care less about this because special effects are bleak at best. There is no, oh, that was cool moments in the film. There is nothing that stands out in this film that just is an ooh or ah factor. During the third act leading to the climax, I looked down in the row in front of me. I noticed out of probably about the 12, 15 people in front of me, I witnessed 4 people on their phones. The one I glanced at was actually playing a game of Wordle, which I was getting kind of bored. I almost leaned over and gave him a hint to what the word was. The movie fails to reach the audience and fans. It's lazy, poorly written, poorly acted, and will go down as one of the most forgettable additions to Sony's standalone series. This movie is like Bob Ross of comic book movies and vampire movies. The only difference is Bob Ross is using paint brushes and explaining details. This movie is using broken crayons and mouthing the words, but no words are coming out. Just a side note, there are 2 end credit scenes in this movie. If you can sit through the entire movie, I give Morbius 1.5 stars.
Loretta, we need you to promote your new book on the Lost City. You can't spend your life in the bathtub drinking Chardonnay with ice.
The world's sexiest cover model, Dash, it's made it!
You do know you're not Dash, right? Dash is a character I made up. Dash! Oh my God.
I enjoyed your book about the Lost City, and you're the one who can help me find its treasure.
Loretta is missing.
I'm gonna rescue her. I want her to think of me as more than a cover model.
Let's start living dangerously.
What are you doing here?
We're here to save you. We're on a Lovemore and Dash adventure right now.
Jungles eat people like us.
Ah, what is that? Get it off. It don't make that sound. Feels like there's more.
Holy mother of God.
They're just sucking on my butt like a geometry.
Loretta Sage, get you out of here.
Why are you so handsome?
My dad was a weatherman.
Last up, we have The Lost City. Now, here is a movie that Uncharted should have been. This is a movie that understands that chemistry means everything in a movie like this and doesn't insult the audience. It knows what kind of film it wants to be, and it sticks to its guns and never steers off course. The movie stars Sandra Bullock as Angela Loretta, a romance novelist that is struggling with the loss of her husband. She goes on a book tour to promote her latest book with her cover model, Dash/Adam, played by Channing Tatum. Loretta gets swept up in a kidnapping attempt by rich treasure hunter Abigail Fairfax, played by Daniel Radcliffe, with hopes that she can help find the lost treasure. This lands Loretta and Dash in the middle of the jungle, forces them to work together to survive the jungle or each other. It's been a few years since the lovely Sandra Bullock was on the big screen. I think it was 2018 with Ocean's 8. This is if we don't count Netflix originals like Unforgivable or The Bird Box. It's been 9 years since we saw her in a comedy, since 2013's The Heat. The reason I bring this up is in every comedy she is in, she tends to play the same uptight character. But that's not the only actor that tends to go this route. Channing Tatum as Dash also suffers from the same acting style in each comedy he plays. This recipe for an action-adventure comedy spells disaster to me. So, what do you get when you put 2 actors that act the same in every comedy they're in? Yeah, surprisingly, a very engaging, entertaining, and an overall pretty good movie. The movie has some smart writing that makes it feel like they were written directly for the two actors in mind. The dialogue comes out naturally and believable. It feels like a normal human conversation when the characters interact, but not just a normal conversation. I felt like I was eavesdropping on a conversation that I wasn't supposed to listen to. Shame on me. This is what makes the movie very engaging, and the writers are on top form here. Could these two keep us entertained for about 2-hour runtime? Not without a very well-written villain, Abigail Fairfax, again played by Daniel Radcliffe. The villain could have easily been written and acted way over the top, but Radcliffe does a fantastic job here. I wanted more of his character. He is over the top, but not the bad over the top. He does it in a very subtle way. He plays one of those villains you just want more of and you love to watch him work. Radcliffe is a villain that we don't necessarily fear, but knows he has the money to do whatever he wants. The writers were very clever to make the audience feel this. The chemistry between Bullock, Tatum, and Radcliffe is on point in this film. The banter between all three of them is eye candy to watch. This makes the film very refreshing to watch. The film's visuals are also visually appealing as well. The film's tone and visual scenery, at times, feel overly green screen and fake, but this gives the audience a feel of being in one of Loretta's romance novels. It's that cheesy feel that adds to the picture. It's almost cartoony with some of the visuals, but when the actors are out front of this, it obviously looks fake. I think they intended it to be that way, and it's to almost signal the audience not to take it too seriously. The accomplishment of this film is using everything else at its disposal to go over the top, but the characters. Even Brad Pitt makes an appearance as a professional person finder named Jack Trainer, who looks over the top but never acts over the top when it comes to his character. This I give credit to the directors of this film. The movie is directed by Aaron Nee and Adam Nee, who, by the way, is slated to direct the new Masters of the Universe movie. These two directors know the importance of chemistry and the use of visuals for support, not the main star in a movie. I can't wait to see the work they do on Masters of the Universe after watching this movie. The movie is smarter than it gives itself credit for. In most action-adventure comedies, it is so easy to make the characters develop in an unnatural way. For example, in an unconventional movie, Loretta would have gone from having trouble to walking in heels to doing backflips, swinging from vines, and punching out 12 bad guys. This film stays true to itself by giving realistic developments to the characters, which gives the audience something to relate to and engage with. The film, leading up to its climax, does start to fall to some of the old formula we've seen over and over again. And by the end, it does wrap itself up with a nice fluff ending that we could have seen a little more creativity from instead of the ending that we saw about 1,000 times over. The Lost City is fun time at the movies that understands its audience and what it wants to be. If the makers of Uncharted plan to do a sequel, I hope they were paying attention to this movie, and I hope they give the writers and directors a call for what this movie created. This is how it's done when it comes to a genre like this. Now, if you all excuse me, I gotta go pick up my romance novel. If you're looking for something to watch while you're at home, we do have a couple movies that just hit streaming this week. Jackass Forever. I called it the most important movie ever made. You'd have to check out the review. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's available on most streaming platforms now. Make sure to check that one out. Also, that just recently hit is Moonfall, a disaster flick about the moon that winds up out of orbit. Sounds interesting? It's really not. I gave it 1.5 stars, but rent it if you want. Throw your money away. I don't care. So check it out. Those are the two movies that are streaming now. All right, that brings us to our last review, and next week I will be back with 3 brand new reviews, including the Netflix original movie, The Bubble, a comedy about a group of actors and actresses stuck inside a pandemic bubble at a hotel attempting to complete a sequel to an action franchise film about flying dinosaurs. That sounds absolutely amazing. We will also be covering the new Michael Bay thriller with Jake Gyllenhaal, Ambulance. Michael Bay, I've missed you. Welcome back. And finally, that wisecracking hedgehog is back for Sonic the Hedgehog 2, starring Jim Carrey and James Marsden. Can't wait for that one too. It's going to be a great movie week next week. And finally, if you are listening to the show, pop me a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at MovieWire Show, and pop us an email at themoviewireshow@gmail.com for any comments. Want to be a guest on the show, or whatever you want to discuss on movies, I will get right back to you. Up until that, support your local movie theaters, and we'll see you at the movies.
A verdict has been made on this episode of The Movie Wire by your host, Justin Henson. He thanks you for listening to the show. You can follow Justin on Instagram and Twitter at MovieWire Show, or visit his website, www.themoviewire.com. Oh, and don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we will see you at the movies.